Good. What can a person do to protect themselves if a child protection service worker comes around?
Well, I mean, just from my own experience and what I've heard from other people's stories, it just seems like common sense to me. I mean, I'm not I'm a nurse. I'm not a lawyer or anybody who works in child protection, but just um, in my own personal experience, I wouldn't let the Ministry of Children and Families in my home. If they wanted to ask me any questions and wanted any information from me, in my case, I just said, I'll answer any questions you want in a court where it'll be on record so that nothing can get, none of my words can be confused for anything else, that it's on record.
And we have that right, do we not, to just tell them?
Well, I've heard people say, I didn't want to let them in, but, I was afraid they'd really take my kids away if I didn't. Well, if they're going to take your kids away, they're going to take your kids away. So in order to protect yourself, don't sign any agreements or consents, or give them, the opportunity to know anything about your personal life, because if they get the information wrong and they go into a courtroom, they may tell it wrong to the judge. And I'm only speaking from my own experience and from other people's stories that I've heard, but signing a consent thinking, hey, I've got nothing to hide. If you want to talk to my doctor or talk to the kids' teachers about how they are, go ahead. I've got nothing to hide. But then you go and sign the consent, I know one person who signed a consent giving the ministry the ability to talk to anybody they wanted, any of the teachers or doctors, and they went ahead and did that, and used a lot of the information in the courtroom against the parent. And that's not what the Ministry of Children and Families is supposed to be about. They're not supposed to be against us. They're supposed to be helping us to help our children, have the healthiest life possible.
Even in our case, we had a situation where later on down the road, once we found out what was going on, they wanted to have an interview with us, and we asked them to have the interview at the RCMP station. The RCMP, when we showed up, we showed them that we had a tape recorder, and they said it would be no problem for us to tape the meeting.
But as soon as Alvin brought the tape recorder out and turned it on, the social worker ended the meeting unless we turned it off. So we left, because we've had the experience in court that we have made statements to social workers and they have turned around and changed our words. But the thing is, the one point that I wanted to make about signing agreements or consents is that the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act doesn't apply the same to the Ministry of Children and Families as it does to all the other organizations. Even if you don't sign a consent allowing the Ministry of Children and Families access to your private information, they are still able to access it if they feel they need to or want to. In one particular case that I've heard, the Ministry of Children and Families requested information from a probation officer and said that the reason was there was possibly physical abuse of a child, that was their concern, but the person that they were saying this about hadn't been around any children, doesn't have any children, didn't live with any children, had no criminal record of that sort. So that's the kind of thing that
And so what did they do?
That's the kind of thing that can cause...
How do they go about getting...
Yeah, just a minute. When the social worker goes to court and provides information that should have never been in their hands in the first place, that's the sort of thing that can affect the best interests of the child being what's on the minds of the court.
Now, in this particular case, it was found out through disclosure about that, the means of which they obtained the information, right?
Oh, well, you mean the man that this happened to did not know that they had gone into his probation records until it was time, a couple years later when it was time to go to trial.
Probation and medical records.
Yeah, well, whatever, I mean, the medical records, it's ridiculous that, if there hasn't been a physical abuse of a child, or
But how do they do it? They have a piece of paper, they fill out their form, they tick off the reason, and then they fax it to
right,
the other government department that takes care of that.
The other government department, the probation officer, the medical records, whoever they're sending it to, doesn't question it. They don't need any proof that there's been a physical abuse, or
because it's coming from a
they don't need any
worker.
proof that there's any signs of physical abuse. They don't need anything, and they don't have to inform the client that they are doing this. So
what is the CFCSA?
The CFCSA is that's the Child and Family Community Service Act. That is the regulations that apply to family court when your children have been apprehended. Everyone on income assistance pretty much should read the CFCSA because, 49% or so, I'm not sure of the actual statistic, but about half the children that are apprehended are Aboriginal, and the other half are on income assistance. A lot of those Aboriginal children probably were on income assistance as well. I don't know the statistics on it, but it sounds like when you read over the stats that most people who are apprehended are on income assistance or were within the last year or so.
Well, the actual number was 49% Aboriginal and 51% non-Aboriginal.
Well, you don't have the document in front of you, so you're not sure that that's the actual number.
Well, I know because I've memorized that particular portion of the...
Really well, I've probably memorized it too, but you don't have the document in front of you, and in case you're wrong, maybe it's 51%.
No, it's 49%.